Hey everybody, this is part 2 of the 2-part series on Texas Strangeness, and right before I move back to Texas, you'll probably be hearing this about the same time I'm on the road. But Texas is, like I said, one of the largest, second only to Alaska, and it's so large with so many sightings of different things that I couldn't fit all the cryptids into one episode. And I was rushing through them, and I'm going to do that again today because there's a lot to go over. But let's just get the show started. Welcome to Arcane Station. I'm your host, Mike Porter. This is the second part in a 2-part series. Texas ranks extremely high, and it's often cited as having the most cryptid sightings in the U.S., particularly for creatures like Bigfoot and Chupacabra. And the reason for this, again, I think, is because we have this very diverse ecosystem in Texas with 8 different biomes to choose from. And there's swamps and deserts and mountains and, just everything. We even have a dormant volcano in Texas, and we even have our own fault line in Texas. So we have a little bit of everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and kick off the last remaining cryptids that I've found, and then we'll go on to UFO sightings, hauntings, and things of that nature. So, first let's talk about the Fredericksburg pseudo-goat. Now this is a cryptid that was seen in the 1850s by a French missionary. And this was seen near Fredericksburg, Texas. It was a cat-sized creature with glossy white fur, rose-colored horns, and claws instead of hooves. Now, that doesn't sound like an unknown creature, like an unknown animal. That sounds more like a spiritual or mystical type creature. So cryptid's kind of a misnomer for that. Cryptids are basically undiscovered and unknown natural animals. But that's why some people put Bigfoot into the paranormal and some people put Bigfoot into cryptid, because there's people think that Bigfoot is a supernatural being or an extra dimensional being, and some people think that Bigfoot is just an ape that we haven't discovered yet. I'm still up in the air on that. I think there's some paranormal aspects to Bigfoot and there's some natural aspects to Bigfoot, so maybe it's an interdimensional being. That's where I'm leaving that. But this Fredericksburg pseudo-goat, it doesn't sound anything like a goat other than having horns. Now, there's another weird story about this little baby. Let's just do it that way. There is the fanged baby of Old Pearsall Road. Now, this was first told about in the 1960s. And basically, it was a group of friends, and they were out for a drive. And on Old Pearsall Road, they were driving fairly fast, and it was at night, and a baby ran onto the road. And they said that this was a toddler about 2 or 3 years old that had a white shirt on and a diaper, but it had blood on its face and its shirt. And they swerved to miss it, and then their car rolled. Now, when they got out to examine, make sure everybody was okay, but also to see if they could find the baby, it was nowhere to be found. The car, thankfully, had righted itself as part of that rolling process. So they got freaked out, they got back in the car, and they left. The driver got really sort of obsessed with the fact that they saw this baby out in the middle of nowhere. So he grabbed some beer, and again, this is in the 60s in Texas, so he grabbed some beer and took it out to that road, and he was sitting out there trying to ponder what happened. What occurred is that one of his tires basically ruptured. His back right tire ruptured, and it was damaged really severely. And he's like, wow, that's really strange. So he changed out his tire, and he was starting to get, it was really late at night, and he was starting to get sleepy. So he got back in his car, had another beer, and then he sort of drifted off to sleep after he had changed his tire. He was awakened to having this little toddler-like creature standing on his lap, and it had vampire fangs, and he had been bitten, and this creature had blood on its mouth and on its shirt, and he freaked out, and the thing took off into the night. So, and then he left. But he basically had dreams about this creature for ages afterwards. So there you go, the fanged baby of Old Pearsall Road, which I believe is a little vampire. Then there's the Horizon City Monster, which is another Bigfoot-like creature, and this took place in the 1970s near the town of El Paso. Horizon City is just outside of El Paso. It's kind of like a suburb. And this town sort of sits on the Texas-Mexico border along the Rio Grande. Now, what's interesting about this is that it's desert in this area. It's very dry, low scrub brush, maybe mesquite trees, but this creature is said to be 7 feet tall or so, with dark-colored fur, which doesn't make sense that it would fit into that sort of landscape hidden well, but maybe there's cave systems and things like that it's retreating to during the heat of the day and traveling mostly at night. But there you go. There's the Horizon City Bigfoot. There's also a creature called the Honey Grove Lizard Man. Now, this is very similar to the Lizard Man of Scape or Swamp, which is in Bishopville, South Carolina. This creature is tall, it's got scaly skin, red eyes, and it attacks cars and leaves large 3-toed tracks. So Honey Grove, Texas is in north central Texas, and again, there's not really swamps in this area, but so it's not a direct corollary with the scape or swamp. So it's not really a swamp-dwelling creature so much as that's where it was seen. But North Texas does have a lot of river bottoms and things like that, so it could be something very similar. It's just strange that there would be this lizard man in a very populated area. North Texas, the DFW area, is massive, and there's loads of people everywhere. So this thing's hiding in plain sight with thousands of people around, apparently. Now, there's another thing called the Amarillo creature. I know that correctly pronouncing Amarillo is Amarillo, but we just call it Amarillo. And there's this mysterious hazy figure that's captured on security footage outside of the Amarillo Zoo in Texas in May of 2022. And it led the city to playfully ask the public to identify the unidentified Amarillo object, the UAO. So the theories range from a person in a strange hat or costume like a mascot to mythical beings like the chupacabra or werewolf. But basically this creature looks like a werewolf, and they've seen it on security footage. There's not a whole lot after that. There's not a whole lot of information beyond that. Now, another creature in Texas is called the mountain boomer, which is described as a fast-running bipedal lizard, and its voice is said to resemble the sound of thunder. One guy described it as a 6-foot-tall giant lizard running around on 2 legs. The guy said that he saw it near Big Bend Ranch State Park, and he saw it eating roadkill on the side of the road. Now, there's another creature called the San Antonio Dancing Devil. And basically, this is an urban legend, but it's about a handsome stranger with cloven hooves who appears at the El Comito nightclub in the 1970s. He captivated women with his incredible, I'm sure, disco dancing from the 70s. But he would dance with them and then he would vanish, leaving behind a strong sulfur smell and, this cautionary tale about dancing with strangers in these clubs. So basically it's local folklore, but there's variations describing his dapper appearance, ice-cold touch, and subsequent chaos and disappearance, sometimes linked to a girl who's vanished or was found dead. So again, there's some cautionary tale around clubbing in the 70s, apparently, especially in West Texas. All right, our San Antonio, which is kind of south central, I would say, really close to Austin. All right, so let's take a look at UFOs in Texas. Now, Texas consistently ranks as a top state for UFO sightings, and it's often placed in the top 10 nationally and frequently appears as number 2 or number 6 of the most UFO sightings. California typically leads overall, but Texas is a significant hotspot with major cities like Houston, Austin, and San Antonio reporting all the incidents, which makes me think that there's connections to these crazy creatures that are appearing in San Antonio and Austin, because there's a lot of information about different Austin creatures as well. one of the biggest UFO sightings that ever happened was a giant story around it, which was the Aurora, Texas UFO incident. Now, this was reported to occur on April 17th of 1897. It basically, according to the locals, a UFO crashed on a farm near Aurora, Texas. So this is very similar to the Roswell incident, which happened 50 years later. So this is way before Roswell. And basically, it's claimed to have resulted in a fatality of the pilot, who was not of this world and was said to be alien. So the pilot was taken from the wreckage, and the wreckage was destroyed, and the pilot was buried in the Aurora cemetery. And there was a stone placed as a marker for the grave, but people started looking into it, and they removed the stone to ensure that the pilot was undisturbed in their final rest. They wanted to make sure that that pilot was taken care of. The incident happened. Everybody, I believe it even had a Christian burial. And so they placed it in that cemetery, and they read last rites. So they didn't want him to be disturbed, or that creature to be disturbed. Now, another sort of UFO type element is the Marfa lights, which are unexplained colorful orbs of light seen dancing in the sky on clear nights near Marfa, Texas. And this has started apparently in the 1880s, and it has drawn tourists to a roadside viewing area to witness them hovering, changing colors from white to yellow to red to blue, and then moving erratically. Some sightings are attributed to distorted car headlights from a nearby highway, but scientific studies haven't fully explained all the different occurrences that have taken place. So basically, it could be UFOs or ghosts or even geological phenomena that's taking place. But basically, it's a local mystery, and people still go out to take a look at it. Now, there was also this UFO flap that happened in Stephenville in January of 2008, and it involved dozens of residents in Stephenville, Texas, including business owners, pilots, and law enforcement. And they reported seeing this large, silent, brightly lit, unidentified flying objects in the sky, but also reported seeing military jets chasing these things through the sky as well. So Stephenville and Marfa, it's part of the West Texas UFO corridor. Now, people are constantly seeing these lights with military presence throughout this area, this UFO corridor. And now people are starting to think that perhaps, and this has happened for a long time, but people are now attributing these events to SpaceX Starlink moving through the dark skies. But these reports have been going on for quite a long time. And there's also been a lot of military activity around those things. So I don't think it's SpaceX Starlink. I think it's actually genuinely unexplained lights, or it is experimental aircraft from the military itself. Now, very similar to the Marfa lights are the Lubbock lights, and Lubbock is sort of further south, and these light appearances started happening in August and September of 1951, and it received national publicity as a UFO sighting and was investigated by the U.S. Air Force, according to Captain Edward J. Ruppelt, which is a weird name. And what he said is officially all of the sightings except the UFO that was picked up on radar are unknowns, which is a very weird quote, because officially all of the sightings except the UFO are unknowns. That makes no sense to me whatsoever, but apparently that was what was written in the paper. That sounds a little bit like cover-up doublespeak. So Big Bend National Park is also known as a hotspot for UFO and paranormal interest. And again, like I said, it has unexplained lights, alien encounters, including Nordic aliens. That's the big, tall, light-skinned, humanoid-appearing aliens, which have white hair. Very, very similar to what you would attribute like a Nordic elf, like a tall Nordic elf, like Legolas. I guess. There's also been found mysterious tablets and phenomenon, like I said, the Marfa lights. And it's often linked to remote, vast, and sometimes this eerie landscape that people keep going out there to try to find, weird stuff. And they're finding it, right? They're finding evidence of alleged alien mining or, these strange tablets that was found out in this area. So loads of interesting things that are happening in Big Bend. Now, let's move away from the UFOs and onto the hauntings so I can try to get through all this stuff as quickly as possible. As of 2026, Texas is officially ranked as the most haunted state in the U.S. with over 7,600 reported sightings. Now, there's loads of famous places. Minger Hotel, it's either Minger or Minger, not sure. And that's in San Antonio. And it's known for the lavender-scented ghost of a chambermaid, Sally White, and his activity is possibly linked to Teddy Roosevelt when he was visiting. Now, another famously haunted place is the Alamo, where it was a site of an intense battle. And basically what happened there, and the reason why Texans are always saying, remember the Alamo. There was a contingent of Texans and Tejanos who were trying to fight for independence from Mexico. And there was this small contingent of people at the Alamo, between 180 to 250 Texans and Tejanos that were basically holding the fort. The General Santa Anna came along with his 2,200 men, and they laid siege to this fort for 13 days. And at the end of this, and this was like cannon fire, gunfire, and then they finally ended up storming into the Alamo, where they defended, like people defended the Alamo to the death. They ran out of supplies. They were like fighting with hatchets. I mean, basically it was a very fierce battle that took place over those 13 days. Now, almost every one of them in the Alamo were killed, but their resistance became legendary. And as a result of that, the rallying cry became "Remember the Alamo," which was a potent slogan for other Texan forces at the time. And the sacrifice fueled the Texas armies to defeat Santa Anna at the Battle of San Jacinto months later. So basically, it's a revered and historical site, but there is a lot of tragedy involved in that place. And so there's lots of reports of these spectral soldiers and sounds of conflict. Now, Jefferson, Texas, which I talked about in the Bigfoot portion of the very first Texas episode that I was discussing, Jefferson, Texas is often cited as the most haunted town in Texas, featuring the Grove, which is a historic haunted home, and the Jefferson Hotel, where I stayed when I was in Jefferson, Texas. I didn't have anything happen while I was in there, but like I said, Jefferson, Texas is also known as the Bigfoot capital of Texas, but it's also one of the most haunted towns in Texas. So there's a lot of high strangeness around that area. And then there's the USS Lexington, which is a historic aircraft carrier that has paranormal activity, and that's in Corpus Christi, Texas. There's the Hotel Galvez, which is in Galveston, and it's rumored to be haunted by a lovelorn bride. There's the Yorktown Memorial Hospital, which is a formal hospital in Yorktown, Texas, and they currently have ghost tours there. Now, there's some famous ghosts and legends that are part of this haunting. There's La Llorona, which is the weeping woman, and the concept of her is that she was scorned by her husband. She killed her children and then herself, and now she comes back weeping, trying to find her children. And she wasn't allowed in hell or heaven, and she has to find her children in order to have a final resting place. And the trick is that her children were taken, so she can never find them. So she's just constantly out searching for her children and crying. There's also the La Lechuza, which I talked about before, which is a ghostly owl-like creature from folklore, and it's said to be a witch who can transform from human into owl. There's the Saratoga Ghost Light, which is a mysterious light on Bragg Road, very similar to the Marfa lights, but they're linking that to a decapitated railroad worker who was looking for his head. Basically, his head was taken off as an accident in the train, on the train tracks, and so he's out with a lantern looking for his head. Now, the next one is a common figure in many haunted locations, but especially in the Grove and the Baker Hotel, and this is the Lady in White. Now, the Baker Hotel is in Mineral Wells, Texas, and it's famous for ghost stories. So they have T.B. Baker's mistress, who's a red-haired woman who tragically jumped from the 7th floor, leaving behind the scent of perfume and ghostly touches. And T.B. Baker himself, whose cigar smokes lingers in the suite, in his suite, and other spirits, possibly former sick guests, also roam the alleged haunted building, which is undergoing restoration. Mineral Wells was known as a place that you can go and get healed. The water has a high mineral content, and people would go there like a hot springs type situation and bathe in these mineral waters. And also, there's a water company there called Crazy Water, and it's meant to, because it has a high lithium content. There was a woman who had manic depressive episodes. This is in the 1800s, and she went to Mineral Wells and was drinking this water, and it evened her out. And she's like, "Oh, this is amazing. I feel wonderful." So it became known as Crazy Water, like it would help you not be crazy anymore. Now there's the Driscoll Hotel in Austin, Texas, and it's famous for its ghost stories and primarily features the spirits of a little girl named Samantha, who died falling down the grand staircase, and a jilted bride who committed suicide in room 525. And guest reports phantom laughter, smell of roses, cigar smoke, and unexplained lights or sounds. There's also the Yorktown Memorial Hospital in Texas, which is famous for ghost stories, with visitors reporting dark figures, disembodied screams, touches by unseen hands, and unexplained noises. And particularly, these are happening in the areas of the chapel or the basement, and there were alleged satanic rituals which occurred there. And there are ghosts of nuns, a little girl named Stacy, and a notorious butcher doctor, all stemming from this time as a Catholic hospital run by Felician sisters in the 1980s, and it attracts ghost hunters and paranormal tours constantly. Then there's the Black Swan Inn in San Antonio, and it's famous for paranormal activity, and it's considered a portal with spirits from its Native American burial mound site and historical battles that are all taking place in the same area. So it features apparitions of soldiers, shadowy figures, disembodied voices, aggressive male presences, and female spirits like Marie Muller, with reported phenomena including cold spots, unexplained noises, and physical interactions like being touched or pushed. There's the Magnolia Hotel in Seguin, and it's recognized as one of the most haunted hotels in the state, and it offers guided tours. So basically, there's loads. There's too many to even go through. So take a look at the Magnolia Hotel and go look at the activities and the reported sightings, and then book a tour so you can go experience it yourself. So I'm going to move off of hauntings and move into the high strangeness. Now, there's an area. So we have roads sometimes called FM, which is Farm to Market roads, and Farm to Market Road 32 in Texas is particularly known as the Devil's Backbone. It's a scenic, narrow road that winds through the hill country, and it's known for ghost stories and folklore, but it's also a really dangerous road, prone to serious accidents. Because it winds through these hills, very easy to have an accident. So along that Devil's Backbone, it's a limestone ridge, and there's been sightings of Confederate soldiers who have basically lost. They were a lost patrol, and it was about a half dozen Confederate soldiers who people see from time to time. And sometimes people also hear the sound of horses horse's hooves, even though there's no horse around. There's a wandering woman, which is one of the most famous tales, and it's basically a ghost of a woman described as the widow of a killed miner who wanders in the road with her baby, calling out for her husband or seeking a proper burial for him. There's a Native American ghost, so ranchers in the area have reported seeing this Native American named Drago herding cattle along the ridge. And there's also Purgatory Road, which intersects FM 32, and there's an apparition is said to materialize on the hoods of passing cars. Can you imagine driving and something just appears on your hood? That would freak me out. So that's probably one of the reasons why there's high accident rates. Like I said, there's a high accident rate, and there's a 60% increase in 2020 of accidents along the Comal County portion of the Devil's Backbone. So, yeah, the community has a huge amount of concern about people driving in this, not only for the high accident rate, but also probably because of all of these paranormal activities, which is going to bring more people to those areas to investigate. There's the Light of Saratoga, which I talked about sort of like in the Marfa lights, but there's also this ghost road of Saratoga. And so people see this light, it's on a dirt road, and they say it appears randomly during the dark of night without explanation and kind of swings around like somebody carrying a lantern, but there's no explanation for that light. Near New Braunfels, Texas, there's huge amounts of ghost stories, particularly with this one area called the Faust Hotel, which has moving furniture and a child ghost. Then there's Naeglin's Bakery, and there's reports of shadowy figures and phantom noises, and it's really popular with ghost tours. So the Faust Hotel reports, like I said, moving furniture, cold spots, the spirit of the founder, Walter Faust, and guests see a little girl or a man tipping his fedora. Naeglin's Bakery, basically there's the friendly spirits of the Naeglin children and Grandma Naeglin, who are said to be present and even communicate with people. Now in downtown New Braunfels, there's ghost tours that cover sites like the St. Peter's and Paul Catholic Church and the Phoenix Saloon, and there's loads of mysterious happenings in those areas. And then there's Gruen Mansion Inn and Adobe Verde, and these are nearby spots with historic Gruen district, and again, there's also known to be friendly phantom spirits in these two areas. The ghosts are in New Braunfels are said to be gentle and playful, and New Braunfels has a very German heritage, and so there's probably lots of European folklore surrounding these hauntings as well. There's also the Ghost Bride of Hotel Galvez, like I said before, Galveston, and the spirit is of a grief-stricken bride-to-be who hung herself after her mariner fiancé was lost at sea. And so she's said to haunt this hotel. The Lady of White Rock Lake, which is in Dallas, have reported picking up a young woman in a wet dress who then mysteriously disappears from their moving car. So she's standing on the side of the road, shivering. Somebody pulls over, lets her get in the car. As they're driving and talking to her, she vanishes. That would freak me out as well. And then there's also the Headless Horseman, or El Muerto, which is an apparition of a headless rider on a black horse. And this is reported to roam South Texas. And basically, people think that this might be like, we had banditos that were sort of moving around, like basically Mexican bandits, and they think this might be an outlaw who was executed with their head chopped off, and therefore he's still riding around looking for his head. Now, San Antonio has this area, which is a road called Ghost Tracks Road, and it's at Villamain and Shane Road, and it's this popular intersection where ghosts are said to push cars up a hill or out of the railroad tracks to safety. But this is one of those things that people still cite as ghosts, but it's been debunked because even though it looks like it's uphill, there's an actual slight downhill slope. So The other thing that people used to do is put flour on the back of their car to see if they could find little handprints. And there's been a few of those experiments, and sometimes there is some weirdness that takes place as part of that flour process, where people said that they see things like little handprints. But again, it could also be like the oils from your skin when you close your trunk of your car. Those oils will collect the flour and it'll stay there. So they could be misunderstanding what's actually happening. All right, well, I think that is about it. I've covered ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, and just other high strangeness. We've got loads of stuff here in Texas. It's one of the most interesting places. For its history, it's been under 6 different flags throughout history, and I'll give you a short history of that. So the first flag that Texas was that flew over the state of Texas was Spain. So from 1519 to 1821, Spanish explorers arrived, and they established a rule that lasted for centuries with different royal banners flown. And then France, from 1685 to 1690, there was a brief claim which was established by La Salle, and it featured the fleur-de-lis. Then there was Mexico from 1821 to 1836. So Mexico gained its independence from Spain, and then Texas became part of Mexico, and it was flying its republic flag. And then it became the Republic of Texas from 1836 to 1845. Texans declared independence, adopting the famous Lone Star flag as their national banner. And then the United States from 1845 to 1861, and also 1865 to present. Now, there's a gap in there. 1861 to 1865, there was a Confederate States of Texas flag that flew over the state of Texas. And this happened during the Civil War, obviously. Texas seceded and flew a Confederate flag. Now, from 1865 to present, Texas joined the U.S., though this was interrupted by the Civil War, and then immediately after the Civil War went right back to the United States. So all of these flags, all of these cultures, all of the indigenous people have left imprints on this state. And so there's a vast and diverse history of the state of Texas. All right, that's it for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please like, subscribe, tell a friend. I really would appreciate the support. If you like this new format, please let me know. If you don't, I get it. I'm rambling a bit. That's fine. I think it's better than reading documentation to you. I don't think you need a nighttime or a bedtime story. I think you need to have a conversation. So if you've had a strange experience in Texas, please reach out. Mike at arcane-station.com, or go to my website, arcane-station.com, and leave a comment there. I look forward to continuing on with other episodes, and have a wonderful night.